Welcome to the Infinite Mindset podcast, the show where we explore the power of the infinite banking concept and how to take control of your financial future. I'm your host, Andy, along with Scott and frequent guest Jared. We're here to help you think bigger, build smarter, and create freedom on your own terms. Let's get started. All right, welcome everyone. We're doing another episode of the Infinite Mindset podcast. We got myself, Scott, and Jared. So this one today, we're going to be looking at NNI authorized practitioners versus your regular run-of-the-mill life insurance agents, and kind of what the difference is and why, if you are going to try and implement IBC in your life, that you're going to want to work with an authorized practitioner. So first off, I want to thank everybody for some of the feedback we got. It was really great. We're going to try and implement some of that stuff going forward. If there's something that any of you have, feel free to leave a review, or contact us directly, and we'll definitely implement it. Next, Scott, you want to update us on where you're at and what your journey is looking like so far to become a practitioner?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I had kind of like a month where I wasn't really doing a whole lot because I had vacation and went on a trip out west. But before I left for that, I had what you got to do is pre-licensing. There's a course that you have to take. I did an online course. I have the test taken there, and then there's like so many hours of review. Basically, what it amounts to is to do the licensing in the state of Wisconsin. You're not just licensed to be a life insurance agent. Health insurance falls in there too. So that being said, I'm more interested in the life insurance portion of it because that's kind of my target, obviously, with the infinite mindsets here. But I'm learning about health insurance as well, which is a whole nother thing. Didn't really know a whole lot about it. Learning a lot about it, which is good. But it's just something that's attached in the state of Wisconsin. So I'm going through the review portion of it. I'll take a couple practice tests, and then I have a bunch of free time in November because of vacation and just the way the work schedule falls. So the goal is to get the actual licensing taken in November. But I'm in the review portion of it, but that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
I'm not sure if you realize this yet, but Jared, you're in the same boat. Every couple of years, you got to go back and take a test and recertify. So don't flush it.
Yep.
It's coming back.
Yeah. Well, I now know the difference between a PPO and an HMO. So 3 months ago, no idea.
All right, we can end the podcast there. We're good. All right.
Yep.
It's going to be just like QCQ. You got to go back and watch some videos and prep, and then you got to go back and take another test every 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. All right, thanks for that, Scott. So yeah, well, hopefully by the next one, you'll be getting pretty close. You'll get your life insurance license, and then we'll be off to the interview. And we'll talk about that in the process here in just a little bit in the podcast.
They at least have it scheduled and know what goes into the scheduling portion of it. I know, like I said, I know there's prerequisites and, getting the fingerprints, that'll be interesting. I know that one of the local police departments does the fingerprinting, but I don't know if I'm going to have to go to Madison for that because it'll be, and then the government, it's be state government though. So shutdown stuff shouldn't have too big of an effect unless there's some, subsidies going on there that are funding that. Well, I'll let you know.
Well, it's federal, so hopefully it won't affect you. This is state. We should be good.
Yeah.
All right, so why even discuss this? And when I say discuss this, I'm looking at an authorized practitioner versus a regular life insurance agent. And so if you're just getting to this and you think that you can just go to any insurance agent out there and go, hey, I want an IBC contract, let's get this up and going, you're probably going to be in trouble. Worst case or best case, they're going to get you something, but it may not act the way you want it to act. So first off, let's clear something up. There's no such thing as an IBC contract. The infinite banking concept is just that, it's a concept. But what we do use is participating whole life insurance that is then used to actually implement infinite banking. So that's number one. That being said, I know we've covered other webinars and stuff like that. If there was a better tool to actually implement IBC, we would go for that, but we haven't found one yet. Until we do, we're probably going to be on this course for quite a while. Anything else you guys want to add on that?
Yeah, the one that I really liked that I heard was that it's the IBC is the process, but it uses a product called whole life insurance with a dividend paying whole life insurance, preferably with a mutually owned company. There's a big difference between those. They're both P words, but they're completely separate. You want to use a Nelson Nash Institute practitioner to help you build an IBC style policy that will follow the concepts built by Nelson Nash so that you understand what you're building in that process. which is very different from the product, which any life agent could sell you.
I think the other thing here too to keep in mind is if you do go to an insurance agent out there and go, "Hey, I want to have this IBC contract type thing," they're not going to stop you. They're working on commission. So if they've got a live one on the line and there's a little bit of interest there, they're going to do what they can to try and implement something. And I don't even think it's malicious, but they're going to try and do something to work with you. The problem is they haven't really had the training or the background or the knowledge, and they haven't gone through the course like we have. So they could actually end up doing a lot of damage, especially if you start trying to implement thing and you think you have a product that will work for IBC and it doesn't. And so that's why it's so critical to work with somebody that actually knows what they're doing. And we'll jump into this a little bit more, but I thought it was kind of interesting to actually look at. I know, Scott, you covered it just a little bit of what the requirements are to become an insurance agent in different states. So I just broke it down for Georgia and Wisconsin because that's what we've got here. So for Georgia, you got to be 18. You need to do the pre-licensing education that we talked about. It's about 40 hours online. You have to take an exam. Then you have to pay for the license. You have to you have to submit a citizenship affidavit and you have to pay the application fee and then you have to get fingerprinted. So they're going to do a background check to make sure you're good to go. Wisconsin is pretty similar. There was one thing here, for some reason they mentioned continuing education. We have to do the same thing here, like we just talked about every couple of years, making sure you're getting recertified. So pretty similar. And then I don't know of any states that don't have reciprocity. They all do. So once you get licensed in one state, it's usually just the fee and then you'll get recognized somewhere else. Have you seen anything else, Jared? Okay.
Nope.
And to be fair, technically you are a life insurance agent at that point, but any reputable agency is not just going to put you out there and let you start writing policies. You're going to have to either come under their wing and you'll probably be captive, meaning you can only write for that company. Or the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to work for some kind of independent agency or agent out there and you will work under them. So they'll have some kind of GA contract and put you on some kind of contract under them and you'll be working for them while you figure stuff out. But the big issue here is that the training you receive is not going to be what's required to build contracts that are used to implement infinite banking. You're going to get taught the typical way to build insurance, which is most people, when you first start out looking at any kind of life insurance, you want to maximize the death benefit for the lowest amount of premium, right? That's number one. You're going to look at term differently. Depending on who you work for, you may get a buy term, invest the rest type of mentality, right? Depends on the company you're working at. And then often, and we talked about this when we did the BOLI webinar, sometimes these guys are talking out of both sides of their mouth. Depending on who's at the other end, they may be trying to sell term and permanent. There's a place for both, and we've talked about that with an IBC, but when these guys are doing it, they're doing it in a different light. And then what I've seen as well is there have been people that have actually gone with mutual companies, even participating mutual companies, and they've been sold contracts that are MECs that we've had to salvage for them. And then there's been other issues where people get some kind of UL or VUL product. And then if you start doing that, you look at all the paperwork, those contracts are about 2 or 3 times larger than your typical whole life. And there's a reason for it. They're complicated and they can get you in trouble if you don't know what's going on pretty quickly. What do you guys got?
Agreed. Spot on.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend that's going through some of this and it's just kind of just resonating, I guess is the best word. Just what he's got. Well, I mean, honestly, he really doesn't know what he has. He read the book, went to like a one-stop shop investment place, insurance place, and they have him a policy. It's not from a mutual company. I do know that much. I'm not sure what it is. I haven't been able to connect with him on these days off to get an actual copy of it to take a look and see what it's got. So I'm really not sure. I guess that's about as far as I can comment, safely without really knowing what's in his hand. But the scary part is I would think that, I shouldn't say scary, but the part that kind of rings true here is when you're working with a practitioner, you're going to know what you have and he doesn't know what he has. So, I mean, we're going to spell all that out for you and you're going to know exactly what you're getting, exactly what it does, exactly how to use it, and then the support after that to go along with it. And right now, like I said, this is, he got it from a one-stop shop place trying to do some other stuff. And he asked, I know he asked the guy, this I do know, he's like, is this kind of like a becoming your own banker thing? And the guy's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, really? Cause I'm like, first and foremost, I know the company it's with and I don't think any practitioner would do that. Actually, I know no practitioner would do that. It's just not a mutually owned company. So right off the get-go, it's against our philosophy. So
yeah, I mean, there's some questions you should certainly be asking, like why you're going with this company, how is this contract going to perform? Is it a MEC? Is it not?
Yeah.
there's a multitude of things, but I would say to anybody is go shop around, right? Just because even you're listening to this podcast, don't take our word for it. I would say go with an authorized practitioner, that 100%. But even if you want to shop around and see what some of the other guys are offering, I think it will be a good litmus test for you to go out there and see the difference and why you should work with an authorized practitioner. Remember, until you actually get to the point where you're paying that first premium and sign the contract, you are not obligated to move forward. So you can do a lot of research and get out there as well and test the waters a little bit. And with that in mind as well, if you do find yourself in one of these situations, there are options to kind of salvage it. One of them is a 1035 exchange. I've done a little bit of these. Anytime you hear 1035, let me just throw this out there. If you're listening to this, be skeptical, even listening to us. Okay. You want to do your due diligence and figure out what that means and why you're doing it. For ULs and VULs, I'm much more apt to jump in, but I will explain to the client what the downfalls are, the surrender fees, and the type of stuff that they're going to run into. I've seen one case so far where I would actually 1035 a whole life policy, and I can get into that in another time. I don't want to kind of derail this episode right now, but 99% of the time, if I see a whole life policy, I am going to work to salvage that policy and keep it in force. I will not get rid of it because the startup costs and everything else. What do you guys got?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of different scenarios on that. Probably the two that come to mind on the top of the head is there was one that was well established. Startup costs have been, you know, exceeded. They're well past they're putting into, what they put into, they have that in cash value. So they had it, I think, available and active for maybe 10 or 12 years. But both policies were going to mech at age 62. And so this was a husband and wife scenario. So as we're talking about what does that look like? Well, you could stop giving to that policy right now. Just pay the minimum. You could find yourself in a spot where the policy doesn't mech. Or you can cut ties and move to a spot where you can roll it into your next plan. Again, anytime someone second recommends that, be skeptical, ask questions, ask why. What if I don't do this? Well, what if I do? Great advice, what you said, Andy. And so they ended up determining that they wanted to move it out. They didn't want to just pay the minimum and limp it through the next 20 years. They wanted to move it. So we were able to do that. And we were able to take dollar for dollar what they had in cash value, roll that into a starter for their next policy. So it rolls as a single premium paid up addition into the start of the next policy. And then they didn't change what the original policy was by a whole lot, but their outlook down the road is non-mech and a lot more cash value and death benefit in their pocket. So that's just one example. There's 1,000 different scenarios you can walk through of someone that set it up a certain way or had a different mindset, or they had life change throughout the way it's, these are whole life contracts, right? These are not 7-year terms. They're not 15-year terms. A lot can change in the course of 10, 15, 20 years. So there's so many different variables on what could happen or how it could happen. But I totally agree with you. My first goal is, how can I save what they've got? How can I help them maintain that? Second goal is, we're working as an IBC practitioner that has a specific goal for infinite banking concepts. We want to meet those as well. So, walking the line of what's absolute best for the client.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Something that really stuck with me there is when you work with an authorized practitioner, you're going to be within a certain set of parameters. You may bump off those bumpers depending on who you go to, but you're going to be inside of it. When you're working with a life insurance agent that hasn't been taught the way that we've been taught, I wouldn't say 100%, but there's a high likelihood that you're going to go outside of those bumpers and outside of those parameters, and you may end up with something that you really did not intend to get. And so that's the big thing. I think in all of this, as long as you're somewhere within those bumpers, it's important to remember that the most important thing is your own human behavior. You will get a solid contract from an authorized practitioner through the NNI. The most important thing is how you behave. And as long as you have something that's built within those parameters that we're talking about, which we will guarantee through the NNI, you're going to be off to the races and good to go.
To your point too, Jared, about salvaging what you have, as best you can, if possible. I ran into that situation. I had 2 whole life policies, I think 2009 and 2010. And when I read the book and started working with a practitioner on getting an actual whole life IBC, I say IBC policy, I know it's not necessarily, but for layman's terms, I brought up those 2 policies, and he took a look at them, and he's like, just keep doing what you're doing. There's not really a reason to change. There's no harm, no foul, not how I would have set it up, but they're safe. And just kept going. I mean, he easily said, no, let's exchange those over. Let's do this. Let's surrender them, and took the commission, but took a look at them, analyzed them. No, just keep doing what you're doing. They're fine. They're safe. So
Great. And that's one of the big things when you're looking at it individually is I don't want this to be a liability for you. A lot of those VUL, IUL products, when you get older in age, they can become a liability as they start to implode as your cost of insurance increases. They transfer the risk to you. You're the one paying more every year at 60, 65, 70 years old. If you're aware of what you've got at your hands and I've helped you understand what you built and you're fine with it, great, let's run. But learning that, a lot of folks are like, oh, I didn't understand that that's what that was.
That's spot on. I think that's exactly it. Do you understand what you have in the contract you have? And do you know what it's going to do for you, especially long term? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we talked about it a little bit why you want to work with the authorized practitioner, but we'll go into here now a little bit what it actually takes to become one. So first off, Scott, excuse me, you're in this first step right now. You're going to become a licensed agent. So before you even get in the door, you need to do that. And this is really important. You need to be accepted into the program. So when you come in, when I did it, unfortunately, Carlos Lara was sick, so he wasn't there, but Lee Barganier and David Stearns are both there. They had the interview and I got recommended by my mentor, so I was vetted. But the reason why they're doing this is they want to make sure that people are coming into this program are doing it for the right reasons. They're not just using this as a tool to make another commission or make another sale. And then the other big thing is once you actually tell them that, yes, I will be accepted in the program, they're not going to necessarily stop you from selling other products or doing other things. But what it does require them to do is if somebody comes to you and goes, hey, I want a properly designed policy with a mutual company to implement IBC, you have to give them a properly designed whole life policy. They cannot sell you something else. So, Jared, who did you interview with? Do you remember when you got accepted into the program?
I had David and Carlos.
God,
Yep.
yeah,
It was
unfortunately,
he's amazing. And it was pretty informal. It wasn't it wasn't a brain pan type of we've all been through aviation orals where they're just peeling all the layers back. They want to see what you know. It wasn't that at all. It was just to get to know you. What do you think about what you've learned so far? How do you approach a lot of different scenarios? It was just legitimately just wanted to get to know you.
yeah, it's probably more the HR portion of the interview, right? They want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit. And there are some people they don't take in, and rightfully so. And I think that they're doing both parties a favor because we don't want them in the institute, not because they're bad people, they just have different objectives. And I think for them too, they would have gotten frustrated just having some of the handcuffs that we have. So, all right. So once you're actually accepted in, then what happens is we've got 13 lectures. You're going to do readings, you're going to have video presentations and a quiz. I kind of like it. It breaks down the problem, the solution, the implementation. And the big thing that I want to stress to people, this is not how to build policies. We will get that later on. It's more or less the history and the context and a greater grasp of why we're doing what we're doing. The actual tedious type stuff of building a policy properly will come really when you get out into the field, working with a mentor and doing the rest of it. We talk about it. I mean, reading Becoming Your Own Banker, you're going to go in depth on this and then how privatized banking really works. I had actually read both of these a couple times before getting in, but I read them again going through the course. And I think the big thing for me was using these in concert with the videos and the quizzes and going through step by step. It gave me a better understanding of what I was actually reading. Because I think you guys realize this. You read it the first time, you take in part of it. You read it the second time, you get a little bit more. And then if somebody can help focus you, you're going to take in that much more as you get through it. Once you're done with that, they give you about 3 months because I don't want you to wait too long to do the proctor test. They will give an extension, I think, one time, but after that, they're kind of questioning your commitment if you actually want to get through the program. And then I remember, Jared, we were talking when you were going through, you were pretty busy at the time. You still made it through fairly quickly, though, once you actually get into it. I found it really interesting. It was one of those things I didn't really need to stop. I just kept going. And then this is what I really like, though. Once you're done, it's not like you're just pushed out the door. It's almost like being, I guess, an FO or, a student pilot for a little while. You're going to work under a practitioner and you're going to be able to sit in on their calls, see how they're building policies. And then they have a requirement now, which is a little bit newer. Jared, I don't know if you've done it yet. I think you're still under the same thing, going to the coaching academy. And so it's a 2-day course that you go to and it's phenomenal. You really just break it down. And there's a lot of times I find where people would ask me a question about the book and you're trying to interpolate it and figure out, well, what did Nelson actually mean here? Well, what the coaching academy does is they actually go and break the entire thing down. You have people that have worked with Nelson. So there's no, I think he meant this. You know exactly what he meant and why he did it and why he built things the way he did. So when people ask you questions, you can clear that confusion up. Have you done that yet, Jared? I don't remember.
No, I was reminded by Lee here recently that I have to attend one in the first year, and that it's
Okay.
included in the cost of that first, the first setup, right? So, but I plan to catch one each year regardless, because I've heard nothing but good things about him.
Yeah, actually, I know you work with John. When I went out, he was going through, I think they were setting him up to be a mentor for some of the guys in the program. They did a very nice job. I thought it was great.
Love
And
that.
I like it too, because it's not a salesy thing. You're not, let's go out and make more commissions. It's not that mentality at all. It's meeting everybody where they're at and then making sure that you're doing this in an authentic manner, not just trying to make sales. The sales take care of themselves. If you're doing this right, they really do. It takes a little bit to get it
Agreed.
going, but if you're doing anything right in this world, I kind of think that's true. And then once you're done with that, you're finally out on your own. And I say that, but you're really not, because every year after that, we're doing the get-togethers. I think this last year we were both in Orlando. Jared and I met out there. Scott, you'll be jumping in on those pretty soon too. And then still stay in touch with my mentor. About once a week, I'm having meetings. And even though I'm out on my own now, I'm going to keep those meetings going, because the amount that I learn, they've got some of the mastermind type things where guys will get together on some of the different forums, and none of this stuff is required, but you just see this need for knowledge, this thirst for knowledge, and people are constantly going out there and just making themselves better, to not only make ourselves better, to make sure that the clients out there are getting exactly what they need.
And that's one of Nelson's key fundamental principles, right? You are always a student. You never reach the destination of learning. And they are great about that. They keep it interesting, they keep it fun, they keep it just continuing to learn. Here I'm not even a full year into being a practitioner, and what I've learned with on the job and with mentor is priceless. And I still have so much more to go. I'm constantly learning, constantly reading. I have not arrived, and I plan never to.
Spot on. I think some of the things too that strike me are the community. When you first get into it, I wouldn't say it was competitive or, trying to carve out my spot, but you don't know what to expect. And that's really what I mean there. The amount of sharing has been unbelievable. And what I love about it is when somebody leads that way, you start looking, you're like, yeah, this is awesome. So I know Jared and I, you've done it. Scott, as we get into there, the amount of times we share and work on things, it becomes more collaborative than it does competition. And for anybody out there that maybe doesn't know how the insurance world and a commission type thing works, that is not the normal at all. And so the one example I have is I was working with a client. I'm primarily contracted with one company, but I need to go to a backup company. I was trying to get this person through underwriting, and I was having some issues with the primary company. And when I called the backup company to get the thing going, even though I wasn't contracted with them yet, I told them, like, hey, let's just run this thing. And they go, well, hold on a second. You're not contracted. What about the commission? I said, don't worry about it. Just put it towards my mentor. I spoke to my mentor about it, and he was like, don't worry, dude, we'll work it out on the backside. I didn't blink of an eye. I didn't even think about it. I was like, yep, no problem. The person on the other end asked me no less than, I think, 5 times, like, are you sure you want to do this? This is your commission. I'm like, I know, I heard you. I heard you the first 4 times. We're on the 5th time now. Let's go. I didn't want to slow it down for the person on the other end. And it all worked out in the end. Everything worked like it should. But I think that you'd be hard pressed to find that in a lot of the other areas that are out there. And just kind of talks to the community and what we have.
Completely agree.
I could take it one step further, even too. I'm going through the practitioner thing, or going through the licensing thing, eventually go through the practitioner thing. I couldn't tell you what a commission on a policy is, and honestly, I'm not concerned with it. It's not why I'm interested. It's not, it's like, yeah, you're going to get compensated for your time. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you if it's a percentage. I honestly, we've never had that conversation between the three of us. I've never asked, Andy, your mentor, who will, agreed to be my mentor. It's never came up, and I don't know. I really don't know. Couldn't tell you. So it's just not the goal,
I think if that is the goal, you've already clouded the focus required to help. Like, you have an opportunity at your hands and at our disposal to unlock a system for an individual that is so freeing and so, I don't want to exceptionalize this too far. It's an amazing process. I put it in place for my family. I believe in it so much that I did it for a policy for my wife, for my kids, a second policy for my kids. These are all things that are currently in place. And if we talk on the phone, I'll pull up the files and show you what they look like. Like, there's nothing to hide. This was such an amazing step for my family personally. I couldn't think of anything better to give back than to help somebody else set that up. You're exactly right. The commission is the last thing that you're concerned about. You're talking to them about what their finances look like, what their cash flow is, where you're meeting them where they are and what their current struggles are, and you're just trying to help out. And there are so many things that this unlocks by creating your own warehouse of wealth that you don't have to worry about that. Those come, just like Andy said. Again, that's from the new guy. I haven't even been doing it a year. They show up, but that's the last thing I'm tracking. I'm tracking who needs help right now, which policies are moving forward, which people need answers, which ones am I waiting on, which ones are now up and running that I can help the best way that they need help, or which ones are just on cruise control. And there's all of those in different categories right now. But the primary focus is the client, is the person and what their needs are. That's always been the focus. And I think you win with that way.
I think probably my favorite thing that you said there is once the policy is up and in force, you're staying in contact with these people. How often does an agent sell a policy that got their commission and it's like, who, what? I don't know who you are anymore. It's done unless you're going to be buying another policy. Whereas, and we joke around like you better like us because we're going to be in touch a little bit, making sure everything is going okay.
That's right.
Yeah, I've talked to the person that set up my, properly structured policies more in the 2 years that I've had them than I have the person that set up my first two policies that weren't designed for IBC. He doesn't even work with that company anymore. And the person that took over, I've talked to him twice since 2008, 2009, 2010, I think is when those went in force. Hands down, talk to my practitioner way more in regards to next step or what to do with this or how to do that or what would you do or, it's just, yeah.
That's a good point. Those are orphan policies, right? Because they don't have somebody looking after them anymore. And if you have something like that and you want an opinion, I would say reach out to an authorized practitioner and we can go over it. And so you actually understand what you have and then decide, is there another step you want to take? Are you okay where you're at? But my point is we are there to help. It's not just, oh, I'm not going to commission on this. No, I'm not going to help you out. It's not that type of mentality. And so I wouldn't say switching gears, but just thinking about this a little bit more. One of the real reasons why we wanted to cover this today, looking at a life insurance agent versus an authorized practitioner, is if you go back, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago and somebody brought up IBC, you'd probably hear IB what? Now, a lot of people know what IBC is and they're going out there, but there is so much noise and so many posers out there that you can go out there. And if you don't know what's going on, you can get duped pretty quickly. So that's really the intent of this episode today is to know, okay, what's the difference between the regular life insurance agent and the authorized practitioner? It's that we've been vetted. You know what you're going to get with us. You're going to be able to cut through the noise and not even telling you not to listen to the noise. Do your research, do your due diligence. And I think when you do that, you're going to find that you're going to want to come back to an authorized practitioner because we're going to be going down that line that you're expecting and showing you how to actually implement what Nelson was trying to implement. Anything else you guys want to add on to that?
Just to build off of that even further and say, there might be a practitioner you meet where your personalities don't jive. That's okay. Don't stop there. Go talk to another one. Like they're very well educated in this space. There's a lot of folks that give you the shirt off their back to help you out. Just recently, if someone had scheduled some time on my calendar to talk, and one of the first questions I ask is, have you read the book? And her answer was no. And I said, okay, well, we're going to keep the call. Let's talk for 30 minutes, but just know before we even talk on that day that is the prerequisite to any future meetings. You have to read the book. And we had a great half an hour conversation. She was so appreciative we got to know each other for 30 minutes. It was just an intro call. Had a great conversation. And I know that that'll move forward, but we were able to find out that we wanted to work together, period. Obviously there's some education on her side and there's more stuff I've got to do on my side. Those will all come. But if you don't jive personality wise with one practitioner, try another one. Are we over 400 now? Is there over 400 practitioners in all of North America?
When I did the coaching academy, this was this past spring. I want to say we were upper 300s because there's some people that have, will come and go. Some people pass away, stuff happens, but it's not a lot. I will tell you that.
Not a lot.
I mean, there's not a lot of us.
I think that's less than 1% of all insurance agents, licensed insurance agents in all of the US. I think that's less than 1% that are practitioners. So, you're dealing with I call it an elite group. I call it because I am one. So am I allowed to say that? No. Okay.
Definitely
elite. But, having met a lot of them, it's an elite group. I am honored to be a part of the group and to call myself a practitioner. And because of that, I strive to do better by the future client. If I can't help them now, maybe I can help them in a year. If I can't help them in a year, maybe it's 5. But I want to be in a spot that I'm adding value to what they're doing. And if I'm not, pass me too. Like, that's fine. Go to the next guy.
Yeah, I've seen it multiple times too, where, you'll get somebody and, they want to shop around and I encourage them. And then I ask them, well, if you haven't done it already, go to the website. I'll send them the information. We're not trying to hold on to anything or, put barriers or roadblocks in front of them. We want to give you guys all the information you have so you can make the best possible decision.
Right.
Yeah. So I think with this, we'll keep following Scott on the journey. This is just kind of a small touch on what it takes to become an authorized practitioner versus being a life insurance agent. And then Scott following you through this, I think is hopefully going to give people a little bit of an insight to see exactly what it is we go through. Your next big step is get through the health exam, really
Yeah.
applicable to this. And then we'll get your license set up and get you accepted in and you'll be on your way.
Right. Should be good.
You guys got any final thoughts or things you want to say before we sign off?
Good luck, Scott. Keep the calls and questions coming, my friend. You got it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys being there too. And it makes it a lot easier when you have more places to ask questions and draw knowledge from. So appreciate that.
And send funny memes. Don't forget that.
Yeah, right.
And actually,
I think you guys see it whenever I'm studying, you see never mind.
I will say this too for other people that are out there, just like it's important for us to have a group that we can talk to on the practitioner side. If you're trying to implement IBC and you don't have a group that you can talk to, reach out and we'll get you in touch with a group so that you're not out there on an island alone trying to figure out what's going on, because that really is key to keeping this going. You can get lost pretty quickly.
Well, I can just hear the Thanksgiving table conversation coming up right now. Oh, yeah, I do IBC. You do what? Dave Ramsey says that's a horrible idea. Oh, okay. And then they all poo-poo you for the next 3 days over the Thanksgiving table. I can hear it now.
Well, it might save the fight over politics, so it'll be good.
Yeah, true.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll get this out there. And then, like I said before, if you have any recommendations or stuff you want us to cover, please let us know. Thanks for tuning into the Infinite Mindset. If you found today's conversation valuable, share it with someone who's ready to think differently about finances. And don't forget to subscribe. Your journey to financial freedom starts with the right mindset.